This is a video on how to complete a cash flow budget question. Cash flow budget is a plan that shows how much money you expect to come in, receipts, and go out, payments, over a certain period of time. This question is taken from the 2023 paper. In this, you have to complete a cash flow budget for Mount Rangers GAA club. It's partially completed for you and it's also given you the estimated expenditure. So having a look at this, it's a quarterly cash flow budget, which is 3 months, June, July and August, which I've highlighted here, and there's a total column where we add up everything we've put into the first three. This helps keep track of your monthly transactions so you can easily identify each area you're spending or receiving money from. Some questions like these can seem quite intimidating, but just break it down bit by bit. It has 3 sections: our receipts, which is what we've received, which I've highlighted here as number 1, payments, which is what we've paid, I've highlighted at number 2, and a total section, number 3. If you break it down and take it section at a time, it's really not that bad. So using that logic, we'll have a look at our first section, which is receipts. We can see here all the boxes are filled in. The total columns are added up, so that means that this section is done for us. So we'll move on to payments. So payments is items we pay for, which is all our expenditure. We're given a list of our expenditure with this question. We'll start on the first expenditure, which is purchases. Glance over at our estimated expenditure to look for our purchases, and we can see we have purchases for June, July and August. We'll start with June of 172, go back to our cash flow, get the June column, go down to purchases, enter €172. Any figures I'm entering here, I'll put in a different colour going forward. We'll continue with the rest of purchases, and for July it's €58. Go back, find our July column, go down to purchases, and enter €58. For August, it is €135. Back on our cash flow, we'll find our August column, go down to purchases, and enter €135. And that's all our purchases complete. And we move on to our next heading, which is new equipment. Back to our estimated expenditure, we only have one entry here for new equipment, which was June for €450. This is okay to only see one entry for expenditures. Go back to our cash flow and enter in €450 for new equipment in June. That's another one done, and we move on to administration. So looking at our estimates, we can see admin cost us €20 in June, €26 in July and €18 in August. Once we have done that, that's all our expenditures complete. We just have to add them up, which is what our total payments section is for. Total payments in the cash flow budget provides a clear and concise summary of all the money going out in each month. Knowing the total payments can help planning and controlling future expenses, for example. To get our total payments, it's very straightforward. All we do here is add up our June payments. We'll see we spent €172 in purchases, €450 in new equipment and €20 in admin costs. Added together, this gives us a total expenditure in June of €642. Moving on to July, we've purchases of €58 and admin costs of €26, which adds up to €84 in total expenditure in July. Next we have August, which we spent €135 in purchases, €18 in admin cost, which leaves us with a total expenditure in August of €153. Now, with all our payments and the total payments entered and calculated, we have one more step to do in this section, and that is to add our totals for June, July and August into the last column. We'll start with purchases. So we add up all our purchases from June, July and August and enter it into the total column, which means over the 3 months we've spent €365 in purchases. Same method for new equipment. We only have a June entry of €450 and nothing else on the other months, which means we have a total of €450 for the 3 months. Admin costs now for the 3 months total €64. Finally, now we need to see what we spent overall for the 3 months, which is our total payments. This is found by summing up everything over this period. So over the 3 months, we spent €365 on purchases, €450 on new equipment and €64 on admin costs. We add these together, which gives us a total expenditure over the 3 months of €879. Now we know what our receipts, which is money we received, is, and our payments, which is money we spent, is. We must find out how this leaves our bank balances for each month by calculating our net, opening and closing cash balances. We'll start with our net cash, which is basically just receipts minus payment. In other words, what we received minus what we spent. So in June, we received €400 and spent €624, which leaves us in a deficit or a minus of €242. If this in red, just to indicate that it's a deficit, and always remember that deficit goes into brackets. July, we took in €600 and spent €84. Which leaves us with a net cash surplus of €516. August, we took in €500 and spent €153, which leaves us with a net cash surplus of €347. Now our totals for the 3 months, we took in €15,000 and spent €879, which leaves us with a net cash total of €621. So next we're on to our opening and closing cash balances. We were given our opening cash balance of €175. So what you can do here is put this €175 into the total column here at this point. We're doing this because this is a cash flow budget which plans into the future, and at the time we created this budget we were starting with €175. Closing cash is what's left in the business. To find this, we take our net cash, which is a deficit of €242, and add our opening cash balance of €175. Our net cash is what we received minus what we spent. So the net cash is what we're left with that month. Now what we're left with, we're adding on our opening cash balance then, which is what we started the month with, which is €175, which means we would have had €175 left over in May basically, and we took that with us into June. Adding those together gives us a closing cash balance in June of a deficit of €67. Now our closing cash for June becomes our opening cash for the following month, which is July. So now we're starting July with a deficit of €67 in our bank account essentially. In July we already calculated our net cash, which is €516. So again, we add our net cash and opening, which gives us a closing cash balance of €449 for July. Again, closing cash for July becomes opening cash for August. Net cash for August is €347 and our opening cash is €449, which leaves us with a closing cash balance of €796 for August. That leaves us with one box to fill, the total closing cash balance. We follow the same logic here and add on our net cash with our opening cash of €175, which leaves us with a closing cash balance of $796. And we know we've done everything correctly here when these two figures match. And that's how you complete the cash flow budget.